Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the International Wealth Builder Radio Talk Show. I am your host, Michelle Estelle, the Home Buyer Coach, here on KCAA Broadcasting Network, 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. We are affiliated with CNBC, NBC, NBC News, and NBC Sports, where we cover over 5 million households in the greater Los Angeles area. If you've missed any of our previous shows, you can watch them on our TV streaming channel distribution on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and the Android app. Just subscribe to the Building Solid Foundations channel and check out our previous shows. So, as your homebuyer coach, I am going to be talking about all things buying homes today. And the topics we're going to cover are property taxes in California. We are going to cover how adjustable rate mortgages work. And we are going to cover what things affect the interest rates. Why do they go up? Why do they go down? And what economic news we should look out for, and which economic news affects an upward movement versus a downward movement. And then we're going to close out with just some tidbits on owning a home. So to start off this first segment, we are going to be talking about property taxes. So I often get calls where my previous clients or current clients receive some type of a tax bill or notification where it covers a tax year when they did not own their home. So for instance, they bought their home in 2020 and they get a tax notification, tax bill, supplemental tax, something that refers to taxes in 2019, and they automatically think that they didn't own the home in 2019, so this possibly is not their tax bill. Well, this is where we get to explain how the property taxes in California work. First of all, the tax year is not the same as a calendar year. It doesn't run from January to December. It runs from July 1 to June 30th. So if you remember when you were in school, or if you have kids in school, usually your school year covers 2 years because it starts in the fall of one year and ends in the summer of the next year. Your tax bill is very similar. It starts July 1 in one year and ends in June 30th the next year. So currently we have a tax bill, active tax bill, 2 installments due, that is for the tax year 2022, 2023. So anybody buying a house right now in 2023, the current tax bill is also covering the second half of 2022. So in thinking of that, you would understand the 2 tax installments that are due as well. On a bill for a tax year, the new bill comes out generally in October. When that bill comes out in October of 2023, it's going to be for the 2023-2024 tax year. Currently, we are on an October 2022 bill that's going through to the next year, this year, 2023. On the 2022-2023 bill, which came out October 2022, the first installment of taxes was due in December of 2022. It actually was due when the bill came out in October, but it's delinquent by December 10th. So you have to pay it by December 10th to avoid a penalty. That's in the year 2022. The second installment would be due this year, April, and it's due and delinquent by April 10th, or you have a penalty, of 2023. The tax installments are not even equal months apart. You have one for the year due and payable in December by the 10th, and one due and payable in April by the 10th. So the time frame between them, January, February, March, April, 4 to 5 months between the 2 installments that cover a 12-month period that covers half of one year and half of another year. So if you ever receive a tax bill that is from a time frame that you didn't own the home, that is why. Another reason why you receive a tax bill covering that entire year is because the county only issues one tax bill for each year to the property. The owners may change, but they don't get a new tax bill. They're only going to get the new tax bill the next year that a tax bill is generated. So if they were to close escrow, let's say in December of this year, 2023, there's not going to be another tax bill until October of 2024, which is going to have that installment due in December as well. So almost a year later, they're going to get their bill for the current taxes. Now, if the bill issued when you bought your house was issued to the seller, but you're paying for the second installment in April, let's say, if the example is you still closed in December, you're going to pay that installment in April because you closed in December and you own the home halfway through that tax year, or even less through the tax year. So when you pay your taxes and when you close escrow, they are doing a proration of the current bill, which means that the seller is paying their part and the buyer is paying their part. And whomever pays the bill through escrow will either get a credit or be debited, and the other party get a credit for the amount that's due for each party. So think about this. If you're buying a home that the seller has owned for 40 years, and he bought the home for $100,000 and you're paying $600,000, his tax assessment value is what he's paying taxes on. So $100,000 with 2% increase each year is still going to be a very low tax bill for him. So when that tax bill is issued into escrow for the current year, when you're buying the home and each pays their own, you're only paying as the buyer the prorated amount of the seller's tax bill with his assessed value. But now you're buying the home for, let's say, $600,000. So your tax assessment value, your assessed value is going to be based on the $600,000 or so. And so obviously your taxes are going to be greater. So what's going to happen is that the county is going to reassess your property down the road, issue a new bill for you for the new tax year, and they're going to go back to the date you purchased the home on the old tax bill, and they're going to recapture the tax that you owe at your assessed value. What that's called is a supplemental tax. So before we get into supplemental tax, let's back up a little bit. Right now, the propositions for taxes, basically Prop 13, protects the rapid appreciation of your home and having to pay taxes very quickly on a higher amount. So your assessed value at the time of purchase is X. Each year, the assessor can reassess your property, but the increase in the assessed value cannot exceed 2%, or at least the taxes you pay on that increase. So 2% per year of appreciation and reassessment. That's the maximum it can go up, is 2% per year. So as we saw in the previous few years, appreciation was at a greater growth, obviously, than 2%. So if your property went up $50,000 in a year, but the assessed value can only go up 2%, that kind of protects a slow growth or a slow increase of your taxes that you pay on the property. But once the title is transferred in some way, so even internally, you to your to someone else in your family or something like that, could be subject to a reassessment. But as long as you just own the home, your value is only reassessed at 2% per year. But when you've purchased a home from a seller who had a very low assessed value, and then your property now is a transfer of title between a buyer and a seller that triggers a reassessment of the property, your taxes are going to be based on new assessed value. And then preceding that, you're going to be under that same proposition where your assessed value can only increase 2% per year, which keeps your taxes from going up a lot very quickly. But as I mentioned, if you bought your house in December of 2022, and then in December of 2023 or October, you're receiving your new tax bill at the new amount, they're going to go back with that new assessed value and recapture the tax difference from the time that you closed escrow until the new bill. And that is called a supplemental tax bill. So if your seller's taxes were only $1,000, for simplicity, your seller had $1,000 a year in taxes, and now you're going to have $6,000 a year in taxes. They're going to go back and get that prorated difference between the 1,000 and the 6,000. So a prorated amount of $5,000, and they're going to issue you a supplemental tax bill to be paid in 2 installments. And that is why someone might receive a bill that has a year on it that they didn't own the home, which will trigger a whole bunch of questions. So that's our first segment. I just wanted to go over initially how the tax year works, why you get a supplemental tax bill, and to just let you know that that tax year is not the same as a calendar year. In the next segment, we're going to go over an impound account a little bit. So we'll have another part of continuing on property taxes and explaining how paying your taxes or having an impound account works. So I hope to see you in the next segment.